almost there. Fourth panel, circular reparations. I want to bring this idea that the circularity does not only affect the on-site recycling of materials, in the same way that the idea of repair does not affect only people or landscapes. No? As architects, we need to apply the concepts of circularity and reparation to our own discipline, and I think that this is quite crucial in our days. No? To recycle our way of being in the world. No? The ideas, the design processes, the intellectual and physical resources, the communities with which we want to tune in and of which we want to be part can be revolutionary if we ourselves move away from the position of expert external agents and get a real implication and deploy a true symbiosis with that we produce. We have two practices to make visible this expansion of the concept of circularity. The first is Taller General. Here, Martín Real and Florencia Sobrero, they are based in Quito, Ecuador, and we can read in their presentation, their vision is to blend their passion for creativity and architecture with aspects that shape their everyday lives, and they believe that collaboration enriches each project, merging design, construction, drawing, planning, activism, and education into their work environment, into the work environment of their office. 2021, architecture is strange, so complicated to imagine that 2021 is the year of establishing of the office. So we have here an office with almost 4 years of life. But I think that it's a quite interesting case. They design buildings and spaces and participate in many competitions, and also have a part of their work that consists in organizing architectural competitions, something that we have discussed and talked a lot today here. If circular reparations are not only related to the recycling of materials, the importance of competitions as an instrument of creating opportunities for young practitioners should be considered as an important resource to exploit. No? Elena Carlo and Emiliano Garcia established the Social Landscape Agency, ASPJ, in 2018, based on logical and natural systems that design holistic environments, allowing for a deep connection with the place and the elements that inhabit it. Warehouse, where are you? Okay. Rubén Teodoro will be today the representative of Warehouse. That is a multidisciplinary collective practice based in Lisbon, Portugal. They design and build social and cultural projects mainly to operate in the public space. Their system of work is based on the configuration of a community around each project, around each commission, with experts, volunteers, community members, artisans, and empower themselves and others through co-creation and self-construction. Mark Surumaki will moderate the panel. Mark is a veteran professor at GSAPP, is a principal and founding partner of Lewis Surumaki Lewis, actually known as LTL Architects. It's an architect partnership founded in 1997 in New York City. It's a quite present and important office in the city. And LTL Architects is the recipient of 2007 National Design Award for the Cooper Hewitt National Design Museum. They were selected as one of the 6 American architectural firms featured in the US Pavilion at the Venice Biennial in 2004. And together with their partners, he has published a number of books. All of us have in our mind Intensities, Opportunistic Architecture, Situation Normal, the famous and already old, but never old enough, always new, pamphlet Architecture number 21, and the manuals of section. And recently, we know that Mark is currently researching focus on the relation between materiality, constructability, and environmental necessities, and they have completed a couple of projects recently, the pier in Coney Island and the Postal Museum and many others here in the city of New York. Please join me in inviting Taller General to come to the front and to give us a more short lecture of their practice.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to share Taller General here at the Columbia University and Juan Herrero's initiative. Today, I will tell you a little about us. In 2014, when I finished my studies at the National University of Córdoba, Argentina, I felt the need to learn more about how to build and the relationship with the people who inhabit the spaces. I knew that was what I focused on. I found an internship at Alborde Architectural Studio and traveled to Ecuador. At Alborde, I met Martin, who was also doing his internship while finishing his studies at the Catholic University of Ecuador, motivated to learn what he didn't study in depth at the university. We both felt the need to find tools to enter the working world, and during the internship, we shared some time at some construction mingas. In Ecuador, minga is the Quechua indigenous word for collaborative work in a community to fix a road, clean a school, build a house, etc. In other words, it's a space where you find yourself solving, doing, and thinking together. The next challenge was to insert ourselves as professionals in Latin American context, where economical and political instability reigns and where public requests for proposals are very scarce. When calls for proposals actually occur, many projects are rarely constructed due to changes in the public administrations or scarcity of resources. We find ourselves in a scenario where most of the projects that are developed are design projects, because at the time when construction should begin, investments are slowed down or the economy is at risk and the process is cut short. The economy, So often we have to look for ways to make sure that what we design gets built. We also work in a country where most of the constructions are informal, as one said. On 2017, And those who build are those who have that knowledge and the needs, construction workers, general contractors, etc. But the design a priori of the spaces is not seen a necessity of the majority. On April 16, 2016, a strong earthquake of 7.8 hit the Ecuadorian coast. Faced with this event, architects, psychologists, engineers, communicators, economists, etc., gathered in a group that sought to assist with the post-catastrophe needs. Together with Martin and some other people, we traveled to a coastal community that needed to solve a foundation problem in their homes. We gave several construction workshops in the community of Guadurnal. For a year, we managed resources with a defined system and clear technology, so that the community could continue to fix their homes. And with this project underway, we all returned to Quito. when Martin and I decided to start a new stage together. We shared common interests and knew we could work as a team. Excited with the beginning, now the challenge would be to create our own work opportunities. It was clear that to begin, we have to have a part-time job with other architects and dedicate part of our time to our studio. We also shared office space with 3 other studios. At that time, we designed and built the Waldbrunner lunchroom together with Alborde. As we were continuing with the Waldbrunner community, and Alborde had leftover material from the Mexican Infonavit pavilion that had been built at UN Habitat 3. The community needed a lunchroom for the school children. Teaming up was a win-win for everyone. Sometime later, we began to design the Pitaya house together with Jose Maria Saez. And as Donna Haraway says, we opened another door that is here the material concern. In the Pitaya house, we proposed using laminated timber because it's made of pine wood from certified forest. In Ecuador, the most commonly used wood in traditional construction is redwood, which is often illegally extracted from primary forest due to its dimensions, cost, and availability. Unfortunately, in Ecuador, there are no regulations about how and where timber is taken from. We wanted to think outside the box and create an alternative to this reality. Laminated timber had not been used in the country before to complete the entire structure of a construction of that size, and that was our great challenge. We wanted to try an alternative instead of cutting down a 7-meter tree to cover the spans of the project. We focused on training the workers for this job and follow the work closely. We received valuable input from the engineer, the boot supplier, the fastener supplier, to solve sections and joints. And we learned a lot about the behavior of the material and the types of anchoring. So then, this was a great experience, and we have used laminated wood in several other projects since. Sometime later, we found a client who was interested in investing in collective housing. And we suggested that he invest in the historic center of Quito because we believe it's necessary to renew life to this sector, which, as in many Latin American cities, is an area that tends to be degraded, nevertheless has all the infrastructure and services. On the other hand, urban growth is taking place in the peripheral areas that do not have any infrastructure for living. Given this opportunity as a consolidation strategy for the studio, we moved into the house where we would build the collective housing project. We had a minga with friends to adapt the office space and began to dedicate ourselves full-time to Taller General. We also wanted to understand the dynamics of the neighborhood and the behavior of the housing in which we were remodeling. When we were designing Santola, the collective housing project, in the historic center, we decided to call for a paredón. The paredones open up a space for collective criticism, which is a strategy for collective learning, similar to the classroom, but which in the professional world rarely exists. We share this space with a group of colleagues from different studios who have similar interests, and we get together to show projects we are designing. An important guideline is that the project is not yet completed, and it can incorporate the advice of the other colleagues. Calling for a paredón with the Santola project was very important to us because the Historic Center of Quito has a high level of complexity. For example, the difficulty in approving blueprints in the City Hall and obtaining city permits on the specific technologies that must be applied to remodel houses that has over 100 years old and are made of adobe, among other things. We incorporated many of the suggestions we heard at that meeting into the project. Getting together to discuss a project means listening and learning from each other's experiences and be better prepared for difficulties. This project has three main objectives that guided the design. It had to be profitable, it had to bring light and warmth to all the spaces, and it had to reuse material resources as much as possible, as you can see in the list on the slide. Those are all the elements that we are reutilizing. While we were building Santola, a family approached us with the need to adapt a small house to their new requirements. The family had limited resources and wanted to remodel only the very essentials. However, when we began the work, we discovered that the roof of the house was badly damaged and needed replacement. This resulted in an increase to their budget. In Santola, we had leftover good condition timber from the previous roof. So we used the resources where we were required. This is not the first case in which we needed to adapt a small pre-existing house for new needs. We understand that the users change, and with them their needs. We find great richness in remodeling these spaces because we respond to different realities that bet on inhabiting the city that is already built. We began to call these projects alternate scenarios because through them we can dream of other possible scenarios. I don't know. There's a video. This is the first project of this type, maybe, yes, that we did was for 2 students from the interior of the country who lived and studied in Quito. The second, a house that I rented, and we designed the project so I could live there. In this case, I didn't have the resources to remodel, and because of this, we start to ask ourselves, who are the people that really have the possibility of building the projects we inhabit? From Taller General, we address, whenever we come, our personal concerns through architecture. This was the case when we understand that the gender issue is a contentious matter that crosses the field of construction in all its stages. From the connection with customers, dealing with suppliers, the relationship with labors, to the spaces of community construction. That is why we created, as an alternative to the construction mingas, the Femingas, in which we had the opportunity to think of a construction space with a gender perspective. We met for 6 days women from different professions: architects, communicators, designers, educators between 21 and 56 years old, to adapt the space. While we were building, we realized that the most important thing was what happened during the day, the experiences and the shared learning. During the workshops, there is no one person telling the others what to do. The distribution of tasks is very horizontal. After this first project, we carry out other Femingas in other spaces, because we understood that building together is a personal and political tool for each of us. As a result of this project, we came to understanding about gender that allowed us to include women in the construction team of the Santola project and open a horizon that considers intersectionality in the future. The variables that go through the design and construction process lead us to rethink methodologies and practices. During the architectural processes, we think about how the low level of technification of the material in a place where the artisanal process is the most affordable can consolidate an architecture that has value and social environmental awareness. With that in mind, we are in a constant education process. Within the studio, we have decided that the projects should have as few finishes as possible to reduce extra materials that generate a lot of waste. However, to achieve this, we must train the team of construction workers those who accompany us in the studio and are thinking and designing what is going to be built, as well as Martin and I, who are constantly asking ourselves how to achieve efficient, inclusive, and sustainable processes in our architecture. Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting us. We are very happy to be here. I'm Peter Lenny. This is my friend and colleague, Ondro Marko. We have this presentation made in a way that we think that our story consists of many stories, many aspects, many layers, many little things that add up to the whole. So it's done quite in a horizontal way. So sometimes it's not quite chronological, but you will get the idea in the end, hopefully. We are from the Slovakia, same as our colleagues Kilo Honč. So we will not introduce Bratislava, but we should introduce Slovakia. It's a quite young democracy. As you know, maybe Slovakia exists just from the 1993. After World War II, we were under the influence of Soviet Union. So we had a communist or socialist government for 50 years. And then during the Velvet Revolution, everything changed. Now we have democracy, luckily. But the thing is that our society is completely changed from before. It was completely rebuilt in, no, it's not rebuilt yet, but it started to be rebuilding in that 1989. And until now, we deal with it because the institutions are not so strong as maybe they might be. The municipalities they just find their way in recent years. They are like still maybe a little lost. So it's quite wild sometimes.
We started as four classmates. Two have left in the meantime, and we were maximum 10 of us, but currently we are 7 people in the studio. This is almost the present photo.
We are super local, I would say. All of us are from Slovakia, and we are based in Bratislava, where we have studied at the Faculty of Architecture of Slovak Technical University. Some of us were on Erasmus or Erasmus Plus for half a year or maybe a year, but basically none of us lived abroad for a long time. So almost all our experience is quite local based, or we read some books and saw some web pages. Yeah, we started the studio right after the school without not much real experience. We had some practice during our studios. I worked for 2 months in the Studio Plural, who was there, I think, 4 years ago. But basically, none of us had any like real experience from the big names, as some of our colleagues here in the room. Quick economical notes. At first, we worked in a way that all our projects were based on collaborations. So every other project had a separate team. And in the end, when the project was luckily finished and money came, the fees were divided between all the people who worked on those projects, on this project. Then we realized that it's a little bit a problem because some of those projects were profitable and some of them were non-profitable. And we wanted to keep the non-profitable ones because they were usually the most interesting. They had some topic or some client which we wanted to work with or work on. So we have decided that the profitable project will cover the cost for non-profitable projects, but it was still in a quite free way without any legal structure. The next step was when we hired few of our new colleagues, and we realized that we have to pay them regularly. So we did it, but at the same time we realized that it's not possible to pay us anymore. So we had a few years when we were quite fighting with this moment, and then after a few years we were able to get into the state that we were able to pay everyone regularly. So nowadays we are maybe established company, but since we do mainly public projects which take really a lot of time, and sometimes we get paid after 1 year of work, we have to create some buffer to get through the bad times. So it limits us still until today. We have no developers, no big sponsors behind. We are quite from modest settings. So every commission which we have now is the result of our work. If we just would wait, we would have no work at all. Nobody would came and gave us any commission.
At the beginning, it was one of the possible way to build to construct things by our hands. We saw it in many presentations before, so we did the same. For example, overly ambitious projects for the family, like this warehouse for tools in the garden. Or we did our interiors in our flats. Or we take a part in many summer workshops, like this serious barbecue spot, or these sunbeds in swimming pool in Poland, or this protest stand in the Prague for the landscape festival in the topic of the young democracy. Or sometimes we created opportunity to do some intervention in public space, like this longest bench in Bratislava, which is no longer there because people used to sit there too much. Sometimes we had collaborations with the artists or graphic designers, like this big analog dial on the balustrade on Parish Stairs in Žilina, which is changing one time per month, and there is some special numbers for the city. Or we collaborate with eco-activists on this Swift Tower in Bratislava. Later on, we stopped being able to keep up, so we are not doing these things now.
One of our favorite topics or settings which we like to work in is independent cultural center. Since, as I said, Slovakia is quite young, we don't have a very good cultural sector formed by the state or by the cities. So for the past 10 and 20 years, we have really lively and very nice cultural sector, which is basically standing on independent initiatives. At first, I had interest, then I did some research about them. I did a book, it's a little book, based upon my visit in maybe 50 of them. And during the process, we became friends, and it ended up in some collaborations, like, for example, this small space for media in the underpass underneath the city of Topolčany. Or now we are working on a conversion of this factory of Tomáš Antonín Baťa into a creative center in the city of Partizánske. Another way how to obtain commissions is doing competitions, of course. We did really a lot of competitions until today. I will mention a competition for Šafárikov Square in Bratislava. We won this competition. It's a public space in the center of Bratislava. But after we won the competition, the terms which we were offered were so bad that we had to turn it down. It was quite painful because as a young studio, it's, you know, you do 10 competitions, then you win competition, and then you are not able to do it. But after 3 months, a small city in Czech Republic, Červený Kostelec, announced another competition for the public space between the schools. And luckily, the diagram from the Šafárikov náměstí perfectly fitted into Červený Kostelec. So we recycled this idea. We won the competition, and now it's standing there, and I think they're happy.
I come from the Leopoldo. It's a small town in Slovakia with 4,000 inhabitants. And before 10 years, the town had a number of unresolved issues regarding the right use of the public buildings or public spaces. So I got involved, and it turned in an architectural competition for the town hall with a library, which is realized now. and we proactively organized for the city the architectural competition for these buildings. Since then, there were 2 more competitions in Leopoldo. A new park in the place of old cemetery, which is also realized, and the reconstruction of the cinema to the cultural center, which will be realized, I hope, in 2 years. So the Leopoldo is the city with the highest number of architectural competitions per inhabitant, and I'm in the town commission for the development and environment.
The first competition in Leopoldo was very successful. It happened in 2014, and it were times when in Slovakia there were 4 or 5 public competitions for the whole country per year. And we saw some opportunity in this. So we teamed up with the Slovak Chamber of Architects and told them that we can make a model role example of the Leopoldo competition. So we made the presentations, we did the manual of the competitions of the Slovak Chamber of Architects. They printed it and sent it to every city and every bigger village in Slovakia. And nowadays, it seems that it worked. In past years, we have 30 to 40 competitions in whole country per year. So it's not just because of us, but maybe we contributed in this topic a little. Various cities and institutions and universities asked us if we could organize competitions for them too. So it became to be quite a large part of our agenda. We did 23 competitions until now. I mean organizations of competitions. Some of them quite high profile as a vision of the campus of Slovak Academy of Sciences or art campus of the Academy of Fine Arts in Bratislava. Some images of the winners, just so you can see the various scale and some Slovak architecture. Yeah, we became quite famous because of this activity. It's quite unique in Slovakia that architects deal in this kind of agenda. And when Matúš Valo, architect, got the idea that maybe he can become a mayor of Bratislava, he asked us to help him with this agenda. We agreed, we helped him to create a book. Then we came to Metropolitan Institute of Bratislava, which is a new fresh institution for architecture and urbanism in Bratislava. And for 3 years we worked there, half-time, more or less, and helped city of Bratislava to announce 11 competitions. Some of them were quite international. Just a few pictures so you can get a sense of future Bratislava. And hopefully it will be built soon. It was 3 years when me and Ondro were in Metropolitan Institute, and it was quite funny. It was quite, I think we did a good job there, but there was a problem that we were not in a studio. And the studio was lacking our presence, I think. Some of the colleagues left. Some of the colleagues told us that they don't feel the energy that the studio used to have. So we were facing a decision if we want to stay in a city and help Bratislava like full-time employees, or what to do. So yeah, as it seems to be obvious, we have returned to the studio, and after 2 years of our return, I think that the energy is back.
Our workspaces. After school, Martin Jančok from plural, contacted Peťo that there was a vacancy in Cvernovka. It's a former thread factory, industrial space in the center of Bratislava. And it was in bad technical conditions, so the rent there was cheap, and we shared space with another architectural studios or graphic designers or artists. But then later the area was bought by a developer who developed it, so we left with the whole community to another building. It's a former office building, later school or dormitory, and now it's sort of creative center, which called New Cvernovka.
When we came to Nová Cvernovka, we found out that there are trees with the little yellow plums and nobody cares for this fruit, so we cared. We collected the fruit and brought it to distillery and made a spirit called Mirabelkovica. And every year on the 1st of May, we have an open house and the public comes to see what the studios in Nová Cvernovka, what they do. So we offer them this spirit, and it became quite a cultural phenomenon. Graphic designer Zuzana Liptáková designed this graphic with narrative of Mirabelkovica. It's a little thing, but maybe it shows our approach to recycling more. We would like to mention also the student workshops, which we did, not the physical manual labor, but the thinking workshops. We used it as a tool to question assignment, usually. For example, in Žilina, little Slovak city, the mayor wanted to have a sightseeing tower, at least 20-meter high, on the hill of Straník, but when we came there, we realized that it's not necessary because the view is quite good from the ground. So we told that to mayor, and he agreed that the tower is not needed. So we saved city some money and some problems, and designed this footbridge and the shelter. So it was built, and the people who use it for paragliding like it very much. And the next year, the mayor came to us that he would really like to have that tower on the next hill, Duben Hill in Žilina. But after 1 week with students, we told him that it's not good to give this commission to us, because it's not good if we as architects design everything around Žilina. There should be some plurality, and we made him, we organized him a competition in which young architects from southern Slovakia got the commission and built this nice tower.
How to become more serious studio? Our sample is maybe Liberty Square in Bratislava. Liberty Square is a large socialist square from 1980. The fountain is in the middle is the biggest fountain in Slovakia. But it didn't work for 16 years. The plaza was neglected, in disrepair. It was the competition that was poorly set up, but we submitted the proposal because it's a really huge public space right in our neighborhood, and we won the competition. Originally, the fountain was created without the possibility to touch the water, with high border and deep pools. Now the fountain inviting people to come in and get wet in the summer. Especially children like it. They are going there with the swimming suits. There is another topic. In the circle around the fountain, there was originally a surface of granite, and inside of the fountain there was a basalt tiles, and all of these stones could not be relayed as paving for the technical reasons. We were sorry to throw away 500 tons of the material, so we try to find a way to still use it, to follow the original materiality and to create a nice and durable surface. So we invented new material which we call recycled exterior terrazzo.
But at the same time, we didn't want to become too serious. We got bigger commissions, similar to Námestí Slobody, but yeah, we wanted something lighter. And when our friends from NGO Čierne diery came to us that in the poor region of Gemer in Slovakia, there is a manor, and they would like to make an accommodation in this manor. We were very happy because it's nice commission. So we made a trip to this building and told them that it's perfect idea, and we would suggest to make the accommodation in the part of the building which is in the worst shape, because it's the most fun, it's the most scenic to go through the ruins. And if the city of Jelšava ever gets the money for the repairment of this building, this part will be the last to repair. So we proposed the steel bridges, which goes above the destroyed ceilings, and everything is lit like we found it. And these cabins, which offer a space in which, yes, you can sleep there. You can sleep in this manner and enjoy the contrast between the nice interior and the manner in the state in which it's nowadays. It's done in this way not because we would like to fetishize the destruction of the building, but we had a very tight budget, and we had the idea that we can create this accommodation in a way that it doesn't obstruct the future reparation of the building. And if somebody comes there repeatedly, they can see the advancement of the repair. Yeah. So if I should summarize what we were really after, or what is our topic, I must say that we never had any kind of manifesto or some program or some list of topics. We just went through the life, and as we had to make some decisions whether to take some commission or not, or do some project or not, every time we made the decision in the individual case like we felt. And looking backwards, I think that we can say that we were trying to choose things that would be socially, morally, and architecturally important, at least for us, maybe not for everybody. And that's the way in which we would like to continue. Many things changed during the last 10 years of the studio. At the beginning, we used to work until midnight during the weekends and during the holidays. Some of us burned out, and it was not good. So nowadays we really try to make a good work-life balance. We have kids, we have some sport activities, and we try to live a good life with architecture. So to wrap it up, once again, I think we are activists who are currently taking responsibility. We are trying to do things sustainable. Maybe sometimes it means a little less time for architecture. Thank you.
So thank you, Juan, for the invitation. Thank you, all of you, for your presentations. I'm going to give you like a kind of brief presentation of the work we do, and also like a small thesis that that we want to, I would like to share with you. Like this thesis also has to do with looking back in my own practice. I've been working in the environmental design for maybe 20 years. And a lot of questions have raised from the beginning. I studied first industrial design, and then I got involved more with the Architectural Association program in Japan with Shinegashira workshop for some time. And then I was really interested about land development, permaculture, food foresting, more like another scale of work, and more interested in the structure of watersheds and landscape. So I think a little bit this presentation will be like a zoom in to like work in a very small scale and suddenly work in a watershed like a scale, no? So it's like sometimes like a zoom in and a zoom out, but kind of the philosophy behind it's the same philosophy. Like it's just like changing scales. So also talking a little bit about Mexico, where I come from, and the practice there. I have to do a small commercial. I think it's a super interesting place to do practice, architectural practice and urban practice as well. Like we've been working a lot in government projects and also particular clients. But looking back, I think it's interesting that we have had the chance to do projects that in the States will be impossible to do, no? To do the fire station or the theater, or to do the public space and plaza. So it's kind of a big country, and there's a lot of offices well established. And now there's a good communications with offices from all over the world. So I feel it's super interesting, like a country like Mexico, like having the opportunity to do things like that we didn't even imagine that we could do, like work in bridge structures or very large park integration. So just that commercial is just to keep an eye on what's going on there, and of course it's super interesting to have a chance to do what you design, what you're thinking as well. So the thesis I want to talk to you about today, it has to do with the Gestalt and the architecture, and it's maybe it's a little bit a disruptive approach, but in the psychology of the Gestalt, it's described as understanding or feeling a very basic need of yourself and the fulfillment of that. So a Gestalt, it's like a round circle, and I'm glad that I'm in the circular projects package. So in the Gestalt, you have a need, like a personal need, and then you fulfill that need, and when that happens, like it's closed, no? So the architecture, as I have experienced and design environment, it's like many open Gestalts. It's a little bit like a mess in terms of how we approach the development of projects in many ways. So, like all the energy, like water approach, soil, which is very important in like landscape and territorial work. So it is like a trying to do a little bit like compare the human health with the architectural practice in a way. So we realized in our own practice at some point that we needed all to go to therapy, and we needed to get really treated on the burnouts that you just talked about. But it was not only kind of the mental health of how we develop projects. It was a little bit more like the mental health of our team and our clients, like even government. So it was like something very crazy going on, like trying to understand why all these like circular approaches are not really closing, no? Like nobody knows where water comes from, where it goes. The same with energy or the value of soil. So I took these drawings from a friend, Colombian artist, Francois Boucher, who is also in therapy with us. And he started doing a couple of drawings about this, like coming back to, like coming back home at somehow, no? Like how these systems could be integrated in a way that will make sense. In the same way that we have a basic need and we fulfill it, why don't we have the opportunity to link the cycle of the water cycle, the energy cycle, the soil cycle, the community engagement, waste, regeneration. So it's a little bit in terms of sharing our practice is that even though we work in environmental issues, like at the end when we have a reality check, it kind of doesn't add up. It's not like being critical. We see the projects and are not like closed cycle. No, they're kind of always an open, like a disruptive, chaotic approach in the construction and design environment. So this is maybe like a sum up of a little bit what I'm talking about here today. Like this drawing was done by Helen Carlo, partner in our office, and I was really surprised. She's trained as an architect from the University in France of Versailles. And which I really liked was that every time we started doing this type of drawings, we could do kind of a zoom in the little elements that were placed in a kind of in a watershed. So in this process, like mentally, we try to piece together a series of different projects, different scales, that at some point, if we kind of zoom out, we could see like the relationship between those projects. So we really like at the very top, there's kind of like a woman that it's making the threads of the landscape somehow, and from there everything else starts kind of relating. So at this point we ended up doing kind of recovering river watersheds, like kind of large scale projects. And we started doing kind of very small projects, and like the one you see in the top, like doing a architecture from recycled wood and just bringing down the weight of the buildings that we were doing. This curved house, it's also like an experiment we started doing, not only in terms of kind of like a no emissions of low impact. It was just like trying to relate in an understanding in a bigger scale. So for now, the practice for me has to do with this understanding of how can we close cycles in another scale. Like how can we care in terms of like the water cycle, not only in the plot of land that we are, but in kind of a larger scale. And I think there's super interesting like landscape strategies as well that are an incredible complement to bring down architecture to earth in the place where we live. And so we're trying to explore that, and we're trying to see all these elements and systems together and at the same time that we are getting kind of our own process. Like maybe the final thought for me will be we kind of never talk about people and how do we relate and how do we take decisions and how do we manage to run an office, you know? And all those engagements like are people related, no? And in terms of design and architecture, sometimes we like don't take enough time to understand the human factor. So one like a suggestion also for all the young officers that are coming, it's that to take that into account. Like, who are the people that are designing? Who are the people that we are designing for? Which type of teams we're building? Which are the communities we are engaging with? And I think at some point, and that's why it is a thesis, if we start thinking more about our health in the relationships we make, maybe the architecture will change or adapt in a different way. So that's basically the thesis. Thank you.
So first of all, thank you, Juan and Columbia University for inviting us. I'm Ruben, I'm a member of Collective Warehouse. Before I start with the collective, just to share 2 lines of my path that somehow is straight linked with the collective. So I wanted to be a sculptor, but for some reason my parents told me that architecture it's a better future. So I went to the architectural school. I'm also like I come from a family of informal carpenters, so it was a thing already in my blood. I didn't know that. And during the path that I've been doing with the collective, I also try always to go against it. So I've been doing also some parallel things that goes from carpentry to an association of biomaterials. That's something completely out of warehouse. But for me, it's also important that me and all the other members are always having these like back and forth of things that will, in the end, come up as the collective. So, just to start, who we are and what we do. So, we are a multidisciplinary collective based in Lisbon, in Portugal. We started more or less 10 years ago. At the moment, went too fast? Still going too fast? So, let me go back, sorry. Okay. So at the moment we have 4 core members. Then we luckily finally have a person that is just doing administration, that is like God. And we have at the moment 2 more full-time collaborators. I don't know why it's passing so fast. Okay. And yeah, but sometimes we are 3 only or 2 in the project, sometimes we are 30. And this, it's possible because we are also part of this informal network that works as an extension of us, and we also work as an extension of them as well. And this network is made mostly by former warehouse members, but also by friends, and mostly from peer studios and collectives all over Europe, and not only, that with whom we relate our values of work and with whom we really enjoy working. I don't know. It's passing too fast. Well, I keep speaking. So what we do, there's a lot of labels, you can read them, but basically what we do is whatever directly or indirectly works with common and public spaces, and that we could engage people around it. That's basically what excites us to work. And our base tools are, of course, from architecture, but also maybe from urbanism, from art, from carpentry, from a lot of other things. Then we just add whatever the project needs regarding tools and methodologies. And in the end, forget about labels and so on. For us, the primary issue is what the importance these aspects do on the impact of our work. So, how do we do it? Or how do we get here first? So, I think the machine is getting tired. So first, a space. We were 2 friends, finishing university, writing a master, and trying to deliver our first competition. Totally wrong, we got frustrated, we are not enough to do all of this, so we looked for a way to get more people. And in the beginning of 2013, more or less, we created a place called Project Warehouse. The name warehouse comes from just because it was a warehouse. And this happened before co-works or whatever in Lisbon. And we just wanted to gather people so we can have more people we can work with. Then our first projects came. The first one was basically we're tutoring for an international design and build workshop for 300 students. And we had to teach what we didn't know because we didn't know anything. So this for us was very important because we had to go fully transparent with everybody, opening the process and making it part of everybody because we actually didn't know. We were like going at night searching on YouTube how to build stuff, and then we were teaching the next day. And this for us was very important also because we immediately start this relationship with the failure, very important in our evolution in the past 10 years. Then came another project that is a community kitchen in a slum near Lisbon. This was a collaboration with Atelier Mob, a local office, and we had to design a full participated process to co-design and self-build a community kitchen. This community kitchen was basically an excuse to bring tap water and public space to this slum, south of Lisbon, where people live below minimum living conditions. Side note, in between these, we were like trying to get knowledge. So we were volunteering for other projects. And this one was very important because not only we got a lot of knowledge of how to build with the community a temporary project, but we got also wood to start the kitchen project. And we got also some team that later became our friends. Going back to the kitchen, this project had enormous spatial, social, and humanitarian responsibility for us. And we are not volunteers anymore because we're now hiring to be professionals. This was very hard on us, so we had to search for answers on others, and mostly on the inhabitants of the slum, and with the team that we inherit from the other project. It was also clear that we needed to create an open process and an open design that all of these people could appropriate, because in the end, it was also their project. By doing this, we're like helping ourselves to actually be able to put this project together. And again, this was very important for us because it was a very humble beginning for an architects coming from a school that was teaching us to be the next Pritzker or Caesar or whatever. Then, after this, we said, okay, we need to look to ourselves. What are we doing? What was this process? And we needed to start to understand our own methodologies and ways of working. One of the things, we looked to what we knew from the school, that was this conventional straight line process, and we start to add all of these things from the past 2 years. That for us was the most important part, because we were working with the material part, but also with the immaterial part that were people. Then we understood as well that we were using the construction as a social moment, and for us, construction became something very important. And in the end, we also understood that we were not looking for a form or a specific aesthetic. We start by searching for the process needs, and then that becomes some kind of form after. Then we need to assume a lot of indefinition and mix of concepts, because we started to get people calling us different names. We were like carpenters, we were like architects, and in the end, we are a mix of all of this. So we have to assume these undefined boundaries between concepts and labels, because in the end, architecture is a very complex, multidisciplinary discipline, and we cannot restrict to rigid definitions or formalities. We don't know, and we have been seeing this for the entire day, where it begins architecture and where it ends the construction, how they relate. It's in a mixed way. So we are also doing a lot of tutoring and workshops all over. We are doing mediations and processes that were not to build anything. We're also doing some art forms, some propaganda. There's missing a picture, and a bunch of other things. Then, as we also see here in other presentations, we had also to think about our structure, because some years passed and we needed to do something about ourselves. So very early we understand that we need to be sustainable so we can pay our bills, have kids and stuff. But we also needed to stay open and adaptable as a collective. So we start to look to ourselves, ways of organizing, and we start by assuming different things. So in the beginning we were a formal group, then we became an association, Then we became an association and a company. Then we got very tired of this company employee situation, and we broke all of that and we created a cooperative with other studios and architects. That it's what we have now, and we are very, very happy with it. Then we also had to think about the model of how do we distribute fees and how do we pay ourselves, how do you distribute the hours that we work. And this somehow is something that keeps changing depending on the elements of the collective. In the beginning it was kind of chaotic to be always changing this, but now we are more okay with the fact that every time new people come or a new situation comes, we need to adapt. And that's part of the game if we want to keep open and adaptable. Then we needed also a home, not a space only, but a home. So finally, after 7 years that we've been moving our office from 5 different times and places, we were able to create our own concept of design and build space. That is basically an office, a workshop for construction and prototyping, and a big room for events and from productions and some good parties. So why do we do this? First, we do it because we don't know everything, especially if we are talking about building something for other people, for other contexts, other realities. That normally is what architects do. They don't build for themselves, they build for others. So we don't know anything about them and about their context. So I think some friend of us from Spain told us once we were talking about, and he told us that normally the answer is already there, and our work as an architect is just to find it and to be able to work with it to the context. And there it means the local community or the territory or the city or the resources, they're already there. So one example of that we don't know everything, so being so close to social housing and rehousing reality, we got the grant from Europe to develop a methodology to put different stakeholders working on solutions for a rehousing process. So what we did was a 2-day festival combining government, social housing, tenants, and technicians like architects in a non-hierarchic format where nobody knew which was the other ones, making them all work for 2 days all together for the first time. This was called the Habitabis Festival. Another example of that we don't know anything, just before the pandemic strikes, we were invited by Lisbon municipality to activate a badly renewed square by them. They renew like physically, perfectly the square, but they took out all the cultural association of the people with this square. So after that, they called us to do something. And to do something based on their local culture. So we created this self-built art installation that were there for a couple of months. And it was built by fragments of collective memory from this neighborhood, brought by the residents in the form of these more or less 70 stools that were printed 70 memories or photos of this community. And then all of this was built with the people on the streets and mounted in the big party. Then, now we need to imagine the picture that is missing here, because it's missing. In 2020, we were invited by Boom Festival. It's a big festival in Portugal, very international known, to create one of the main structure for the stage. It's here. And they want us to break with the same old design of the festival. We said yes, because this is a very amazing festival and huge structure. You can only see half of it inside on this picture. We said yes, but only if, with the possibility to fully open the design and the building process to everybody. Luckily, this was before the pandemic, so with the pandemic, we got 2 extra years to work on this project. So it was really, really open. For us, it was also harder in the beginning because it was a lot of people involved. All the team, all the legacy from 20 years festival. But in the end, for us, it pays off because it was a fully collective process of a structure in the festival that is still there for other editions. Then we do it also because we believe that we don't have to do all this new stuff. And let's face it, the building world is like, it have an horrible position on the climate impact and what we do as consuming resources. So one of these issues, this is a project, you can only see the prototype pictures because it's still kind of a secret, we cannot show more, but it's a project that we are doing now. We are developing a design project for a permanent exhibition for a new design museum that is opening. Sorry, I lost myself in my notes. And this, yeah, the design museum that is opening, which will be made entirely from the leftover materials from the building renovation. So we are just using leftover materials from the renovation of this huge building. It's like a 6-floor building that was in construction for 10 years now. And this is a very disruptive proposal for a design museum and very against this idea of the white cube of exhibition and museums. So, but for us, it's a way of creating something that it's not coming from new resources and stuff like that. Another of these examples of our project, it was some years ago, we designed and built, self-built this modular building from some kind of temporary cultural association. And this was the result of the research on these panel sheet size materials like plywood and stuff, and the ability to create an adaptable, movable buildings with almost no leftover from the production of the original standard sheets size. So for us, it was very important that we didn't have any leftovers from cuts and from producing this building. Last but not the least, we do it also because we believe that architecture is political. So practicing architecture is a political act. Either you assume it or not, either it's conscious or not, you are playing it every day of your life while you are doing it. So one of these examples, and we have many, I just brought 2 because I think that everything that we do is quite political, but I'm going to just share 2 with you. One of this project was a collaboration with a Danish studio called Superflex and KYI, that is another studio, that we developed 3 pavilions to host homeless people that are employed during Roskilde Music Festival in Denmark, that they are hired to collect bottles from the ground. The pavilions are basically scaled down 3 of the most exclusive fashion stores headquarters, like Prada and stuff. But designed all of them by these superstar architects. And for us, it was important because this was giving a contrast light to the conflict between the festival visitors and the bottle collectors that had like these pavilions in the end of the main area. So we wanted to bring up this question, and the center pavilion was, after in the end, a place to host conversations about this topic, about these people. So giving some light to them, let's say. Finally, during the last edition of Lisbon Triennale of Architecture, we did the event that was called Why Architecture Today. It was a provocative event, like a parasite from this triennale, and this was basically questioning the importance of architecture today, and mostly why we are doing architectural exhibitions. Why do we do it? For whom are we exhibit these works? For whom are we doing these conversations? And we did also a conversation about it, and we invite a lot of people. These raised more questions than answers during the festival, during the Triennale, and it seemed very uncomfortable for the main formal structures and entities around the Triennale, and also for some of the sponsors that are mainly companies of material and stuff. But for us, this was one of the confirmations that we really needed to continue to question ourselves about what are we doing and for whom are we doing. Thank you.
First of all, thank you all for the presentations. Really fantastic, and really to all of you today. This is the last panel, and so it's been an incredibly dense and intense day, I think, for me, and really kind of gratifying just to see the range of practices that Juan has assembled and kind of brought together here. It's really fantastic to be part of it. So Juan started this segment of the symposium by kind of opening up this idea of circularity to not only the repurposing, let's say, of materials or structures or spaces, but also the idea of kind of restructuring architectural practices, right? And one of the things that struck me in all of your very compelling presentations was, whereas I think it's much more conventional for architects to present their work in terms of slides of, right, here's one building, here's the next building we did, here's the following building, that in all of your cases, your work involves a kind of expanded territory of practice, which encompasses, on the one hand, the kind of, let's say, literal spatial expansion of operating within a broader territory, kind of ecosystemically in context of landscape, in the context of urban spaces and their transformation, but also in the realm of, let's say, processes, right, that are not necessarily conventionally understood to be in the realm or within the kind of purview of architects, right? And so I'm thinking about a number of things, the construction of competitions, right? For example, the organization of the Mingas and the Femingas, right? And this kind of idea of structuring processes for engagement with communities and for your own kind of internal creative, kind of co-creative processes. And on the other hand, right, in all of your work, I think there's also a kind of very palpable engagement with the material conditions of construction, right, on the other hand, right? So, and I think a lot of you have talked about that in terms of almost a kind of a very participatory, hands-on, almost kind of DIY, right, logic, that it was important at some point in your practice and in the evolution of your practices to directly engage with those material conditions. And I'm kind of interested in that. There's sort of a tension maybe there, a kind of productive simultaneity of those two ways of thinking and operating, and also maybe a breaking down of what might seem to be a binary between them, which I think we can talk about. But maybe just to get to the first part of that question and to structure it a little bit more as a question, can you all talk about first this notion of the design of process, right, or the design of let's say strategies for either engagement, strategies for thinking about how architects operate, not through, let's say, the design of structures and spaces only, but also through the design of interactions, engagements, and let's say kind of participatory exchanges. And anyone who wants to.
Well, hi. I think that in our contest we are in charge of every part of a process of a build. We are in charge of design, of approbation, of construction, and that made us to be part of every team or every team that get involved in the process. So maybe that's why, or that's the strategy that we use. We are involved in every part of the process. We are a part of the team constructions a lot of times. We are a really small group. Actually, we are like six people now, but all of us are involved in every process that we made. And we made a lot of things that are not actually buildings. We made, well, like Femingas, that it's not a building like that, it's more like a process. But we are part of the organization of a contest. We are part of the academic spaces in our country, and all the spaces that we use made us strategies to do our work. We also try to explain in the presentation that we value a lot that in Ecuador are a really big network. Actually, well, in all the presentations we could see that in our countries we were like making that kind of networks. But in Ecuador we have a network that help us to, I don't know, to be involved in more type of process every time.
Yeah, and yeah.
I just want to share, like, one of the things that happened to us was that in the beginning, we never thought about if we were designing a process or not. We were just doing it as we start doing it, and we like to do it like this. This was already a passion since the beginning. But it was funny that over the years that we were doing projects, we were asked to design processes for other projects or realities. And only by then we start to understand that, okay, maybe this is something else than just, we are not designing a building, we are actually designing a full project. So one of the steps is the entire process, how it's going to do, how do we engage people, how do we promote sometimes the project itself to get funding for a next phase or something like this. So for us it was not clear in the beginning, but then as people start to understand from our process, they start to actually ask us just to do that part, even in some things that are not related with a building or a space. We were asked a couple of times to do, for instance, participatory dynamics to create a process of engaging people to think about like cultural impacts of I don't know, something like the Goethe Institute, something like this. So for us, only then we start to understand like there's also this other part that we could actually be developing as well.
Just a quick comment, if I understood your question correctly. In terms of process and methodology, when we begin doing a project, we use a tool that was developed by a group called Regenesis Group that you might be related. And they do something that it's called Story of Place. And it's a beautiful process also for students, like if you can relate to it. You go in studying the place, the site, the community, the watershed, the biology, the biomass, all the way to the mineral. And once they arrive to the mineral, then you put the picture together of the place you're going to work. So that's kind of the first framing of the methodology to start developing a project.
Well, we don't feel very confident in talking with like a general open public. So if that is the case, we usually team up with the specialist. But what we can do is that we are trying to be in every of our projects from the beginning till the very end. And we try to talk with the individual specialists who deal in some topic. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing, I mean, I think to expand that idea, there's the kind of process involved with the sort of direct implementation of a project, but I'm also curious in your work, and we had a few really interesting conversations today about competitions and the kind of economics and kind of labor relationships that they entail. So as it seems like one of the really unique things about your practice is this designing of competitions or the orchestration of competitions. So I'm curious about how that interrelates. Yeah.
Yes, that's the core of our discussion in this topic, how to do it in a proper way. As we ourselves, we do competitions as participants, we know that it takes, for us, at least 400 hours for usual competition. If it's more difficult, it's more hours. 600, 700 or so on. So we know how much time and how much money and energy does it take. So we are trying to design competition processes which deal with this in some way, but we have to be careful because on one hand we need to limit the total amount of time which is invested in some competition, which is in the simplest way possible. It's possible to do that you do close competition, but this is not the result that we want. So we are trying to come up with competitions who are open, but at the same time the amount of energy and time is limited. So, for example, two-stage competitions with very, very limited requirements in the first round. For example, we did a competition last year in which we prohibited visualizations, renderings, and it was at first it was fight with the announcer of the competition because he wanted images, but
Of course.
yeah, he agreed. Then it was fight with the jury because jury wanted to see the images, and then it was a fight with the participants because they wanted to give us images. And for every one of this group, we had to persuade them that it's not really needed. And after this competition, we made a questionnaire with the participants, and we got the results that in reality it limited the amount of time significantly. I know that this is not the solution to every competition, but it's one of the things that we are testing at the moment.
You know, it's super interesting because it kind of correlates to this conversation about resourcefulness in a sense, right? Or it's been talked about in terms of scarcity and resources and how do we kind of deploy those. And it's interesting to hear that the way that your approach to the competitions kind of reflects an understanding of the time and labor that goes into these processes as another kind of resource in a sense. And maybe sort of flipping to the other end of that equation or the other side of it, I was, I think some of the work that I've seen both here today, but also kind of looking at some of your work online is, fantastic, and it clearly involves a high degree of attention to materiality, detail, assembly, et cetera. And one thing that came up, and Ruben, you were just talking about this project that only utilizes the material recovered from the previous building site to construct with the kind of use of repurposed wood or sort of specific materials systems, reclaimed materials, in your case as well, Emiliano. So maybe a question to anyone, or all of you, but could you talk about this notion that I'm very interested in, and it was alluded to earlier today as well, that in a sense this idea of material constraint inverts the design process to some degree, right? So rather than kind of conceptualizing something which then becomes articulated through materials which you can infinitely customize or subscribe, the material limits that are set from understanding a certain set of kind of resources, say from reuse, right, or from a certain material stream, set the terms in some ways of the architecture that results, right? So could you talk about, I'm curious if anyone has thoughts about how that changes your design process and how it changes the resulting kind of architectural artifact or product or space.
I don't know the answer. We're gonna try. For us, it's very clear since the beginning that, I mean, normally we're not aiming for a specific form or specific aesthetic. We are aiming for some kind of critic thought behind what we are doing. And that goes from the fact that we involve people that will then be the one using the space or the building that we are creating, but also regarding the resources that we have, and one of these resources are the materials. So for us, actually, we feel that, for instance, to have a specific material to reuse, or in this case, a bunch of completely different materials that comes from building renovation, this actually creates a very positive thing for our process, because it gives us a kind of a base so we can go deeply into it, because it's really, really funny to design on some specific 3 or 4 materials, and then in the end we always need to do the same as you can do if you have all the materials of the world, that you have to choose how to combine them and to think also how it's going to look, how it's going to be its function, if it's right or not, also aesthetically, if it's something that will bring a positive impact to the space. So for us to start from these specific materials, for instance, if we use a lot of this methodology that is, for instance, when we are doing project with a public entity, we start by asking where they put the stuff that they don't use anymore. So like municipalities and stuff, like in Portugal, we know all of the warehouses of the municipalities. It's like something that we always go for it. But for us, it's because it's very interesting to start from that point and then to go deeply to get to know these materials. Also because, and this I think it's something that goes on our DNA, is that because we build a lot of our projects, we actually need to go to this specificity of the materials so we can know actually how to use them. And for us, this is very exciting. So we see it as a positive thing to don't have all the materials of the world to start. And and also it's a good impact of what you are doing.
Yeah, actually, for us, like, it helped us to make decisions because we work in group, and it's hard to think the same thing sometimes. So, like that kind of conditions that reuse some material that have like one way of use allow us to make our decisions. It's like our start point.
Just two brief comments on that. We had an earthquake in Mexico in 2017, and Shigeru Ban came over, and in the observations he did about all the disaster was like, say, why you Mexicans like build in a way that you don't know how it was built in a way. So it was a very strong statement for us, because many of the projects that I saw here today are very keen of like showing how they are built and how they are assembled. So I think that's a very interesting practice for like countries like Latin American countries and Mexico, because when you arrive to a place with a disaster and you know how it was built, and then you can re-ensemble it and you can fix it, it's totally different, the approach of the disaster. Instead of like a concrete slab that you didn't know if it was really well placed and welded and whatever. And relating the way we use materials, but in terms of the materials themselves, like we always ask the question, what is kind of a renewable material? Where is the source? And when we reuse a material, what's the life cycle of that material? And there are like kind of very strict questions to see which materials we use in what we're building. And last comment is like sometimes like we realize when we're building that if we change the material and we change the weight of the building, then we change the price and the process and the complexity, you know. So sometimes we invest more in design to develop a building that will be like lighter and cheaper in a way. So so we can like kind of change the way the architecture and intervention works. No?
Well, just one thing that I was thinking, in our contest, in Latin America context, we don't have as regulation as you have. We don't have the control that you have. So work with that kind of, I don't know, or showing everything in the building. It's a way to know what's the important thing of the building, and to make we have like many times we have little budgets, so we try to put the money there, not in what cover it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting because it also connects to sort of the regulatory environment one operates within, right? Because often the direct reutilization of repurposed materials doesn't meet, let's say, standards of code or liability and these other kinds of questions. So it seems like it's interesting to think about how engaging in these different geographies, different kind of areas of practice kind of allow you to operate, right, in sometimes freer ways, but also in more kind of limited ways. And I appreciate the comment about sort of this understanding of the full life cycle of the material, right? That it has a kind of origin and has an afterlife, right? And we normally as architects are fixated on this incredibly brief moment in which it's temporarily assembled into a building. So I want to open up to the audience. I did want to ask one other just quick question, maybe if we have time, which is you brought up therapy. So I sort of see this whole day maybe as a kind of collective therapy session for everyone involved, perhaps. but also it came up in the context, I think, Peter and Andres, you were talking about self-care and the kind of necessity to create a live-work balance, right, within the work. And I think a number of people, you were talking about this as well, Ruben, and throughout the day, that there's this sort of necessity in terms of circularity and repair, right, to also think about the, let's say, regeneration of one's own capacities, right? I was thinking about the earlier conversation where a number of people noted they were exhausted as their kind of primary sort of reaction to the everyday demands of practice, right? So, so could you talk a little bit about that and how you see that in terms of the way you structure your practices, your whether however you define them, and what the importance of that is within the ability to still offer care to other conditions, right? So this idea of care, which I think has become an important one within GSAPP here, really the kind of culture of care and understanding acts of architecture in that context, seem also to demand understanding care in relationship to our own, right, our own kind of practices, our own collaborators, our own kind of communities as well.
Since I brought the therapy issue, like just, you know, we'll comment like a little bit where it came from, like a short story. It's like this well, not only in the office but our friends, we all started therapy, you know, and we kind of had to decide which type of therapy we were going to engage in terms of group. But I think the reflection or what to share with you is that we kind of externalize a lot of the things that we live in within ourselves. Like what we design, like gets built, and people are using these spaces, no? And if we are in a kind of a neurosis and in a burnout, like I think somehow that reflects in the spaces we inhabit. So it's kind of somehow it came like a big responsibility of what are you projecting in the spaces we're building in that sense. So once we were getting more into the therapy process, it's like for me it was a little bit like realizing that there is a lot of neurosis. Like, well, I live in a 20 million people city, which like crossing like a road, it's kind of a challenge sometimes. So it's kind of a very neurotic environment in the way it's kind of came together, no? So in the rationale, it's just like looking back to our own health, the health of our relationships, and how do that relate to the way we design, no? It's just like that note.
I just want to add like exactly the same. So we have this funny thing now that everybody in our collective is doing therapy. So we said like there's a new girl coming, and we said, okay, you have to start therapy before you come. And jokes apart, I think it's as you were saying, like it's very important on the output of what you're doing, and now we are talking about our professions, but also in the rest of our life. But going back to the profession, our way of work is to deal with a lot of people and to make a lot of important decisions for their lives and so on. So I totally agree that I hope that we are doing a better work now that we are all in therapy for the last 3 years than before. And then besides therapy, it's also something that we tend to balance in the collective. I think since the beginning, is to try to not lose ourselves in this thing that you are teach in the architectural school, that you can work 10-20 hours without sleeping. It's like it was part of my education. It's like to have your dark eyes. It was a good thing. So, when we start to come up ourselves with our rules of work, we said, okay, just come down with that. Of course, sometimes we need to push it because we have some kind of, but we are always trying to balance it because the 2 or 3 times we didn't, the payoff it's super bad. So now it's something very important for the last years for us.
Something to add to the thinkings I'm shared to. I think that as an architects we are in constantly relationship with others, and we are affected to in a good way. We are affected for these relationships. So we still make things with others. So it's going to happen. It's going to happen, this affection or this. And also we are persons that are changing a lot. We are changing also in our studio with the people who we are working, and it's super important to us to stop sometimes and rethink and re-asking ourselves what are doing. So
I'm really happy to hear all of this. It's like that. We should care for ourselves. But the thing is that there used to be times when we like really pushed, and in that times we used to win competitions. And now it's really hard to win competitions and at the same time limit the time, because we know that our opponents don't limit their time. So it's I don't have the answer. I'm still looking for it. So.
Great. Should we take some questions from the audience? Back in the back.
Hey, I know you guys aren't all explicitly cooperatives, but if you had one piece of advice for a cooperative leaning practice that's trying to get started, what might it be?
One advice?
Yeah, to make like a cooperative design practice work.
I'm not good in resuming, as you could also already see. I don't know. Learn to say no. That's an advice.
Well, maybe understand like the number of people you can work with. I don't know. Well, if this was in Spanish, I could talk more. But we learned in these 7 years that we want to keep small the office, because it's something that we can control. But well, I don't know if that's the word, but to understand, and maybe that's an advice.
And I have one weird advice, like coming from Mexico, more like the shamanistic, like approach. Like when this shaman once, I asked this question to him, like just waiting to see what he said, no? And he said, like having super cool people in your team, it's not enough. Like he said, like you have to see if you have a common vision and you share it. And if all the skills that the people in your team, like your really cool team, have, they are willing to put them towards the common vision. So it's kind of not enough to have the dream team. Just to share that vision was kind of super important advice. Like when we started doing that type of cooperative work.
questions?